Hi everyone. So today I'm gonna do a little bit of a different video here on my YouTube channel. So we have really exciting news. So Llama 3 by Meta just dropped, and it's this release includes 8 billion and 70 billion pre-trained and instruction tuned models. So those are already made available, and you can download them basically and start to use them. So I just tweeted this a couple of minutes ago, and I provided some details here in the thread. But what I want to do in this video, I want to go over some of the details and kind of share some of my thoughts on where things are headed. We've been waiting for Llama 3 in the space for a long time, working with language models for some time now, and working with some of these people that are involved in this Llama 3 project as well has really built up a lot of excitement for me, and especially because I do a lot of work around large language models. I do have a lot to share. So if you are interested in those, this will be the video for it. So just to cover kind of an overview of this model here. So the official release is here. They made it available here at llama.meta.com, Llama 3. I'll share all the links and they'll be made available in the description. And basically, the news here is that it's a 8 billion model. So and a 70 billion model, right? So Llama 3 involves two of these models. And you can see here from the results, and I will show you here. And that's usually one of the things that we look at when we're doing model selection as developers. So that's one of the more important pieces of information to tell you more or less what are the capabilities and what this model can do. So the good news here is that Llama 3, the instruct model, because there is an instruct model as well as the instruction tune model, and we will talk about how they did this instruction tuning in a bit. You can see here that this Meta Llama 3 8 billion model outperforms the Llama 7 billion. So this one is from Google. This one is the open model from Google. And obviously this is Mistral, the 7 being instruct model as well. So these are all both instruct models. You can see how it compares. Not sure about the 8 billion. I'm not sure why this wasn't the 7 billion. And I'm very curious about that to hear more from the authors as well. But that's really interesting that this is an 8 billion model. And you can see how it obviously outperformed both of these models. I'm very interested in the human eval, especially because human eval has a lot of like code generation and so on. And obviously MMLUs for reasoning and so forth, it measures reasoning capabilities. And also you have like math reasoning capabilities, which is good. You can see for these two different like benchmarks, right? So, and then obviously is question answering. But you can see how it outperforms both of these models. That's really great to see. This looks like a very strong model. It's probably the strongest open model yet. And I may be missing another model, but you can see that this is already showing very strong results. One thing that'll be interesting here is to compare with GPT 3.5. That's something that I might end up doing in a follow-up video. So how does it compare with some of the APIs as well? That's obviously of interest because when you're doing model selection, you want the best model, right? And sometimes for experimentation, you want to try out these models and they're usually made available via APIs. So, how might it compare with something like GPT 3.5 Turbo? It's a good question to ask as a developer here. Um, this one is a 70 billion parameter model, right? So we have an 8B and we have a 70B. Now, the community has asked also for the 30 billion. There's no 30 billion here, unfortunately, but that's something that's really interesting to see that there's only a 8 billion and a 70 billion. But you can see that 70 billion model definitely does a lot better on these benchmarks. You can see all the improvement here. And interesting enough, they compared it with the latest Cloud 3 Sonnet model and also the Gemini Pro 1.5 model. And you can see how it outperforms. Now I can see that there is this Meta Llama 3 70B falls a little bit behind in the math reasoning. I'm not sure why that is the case. I would expect some kind of improvement. Maybe it has to do with how they evaluate it and so forth, but this is really interesting. And also like Gemini 1 Pro 1.5, there is a little bit of a text here that says Minerva prompt. So the Minerva prompt was used. Minerva is just another model that's used for like math, reasoning, and so forth. And you can see how this one obviously performs really well. And this only tells you how competitive these models are becoming. you can tell that these models, right, the comparisons or the performance is quite similar. So that's interesting to keep track of. So that's a little bit about the instruct model. Okay, so this is more about like the responsibility. I know Meta has done a lot of responsibility work. If you're interested in that, there's some interesting details in the blog post. So there's also a blog post. I'll put this link in the description as well. And you can read about their approach, how to kind of integrate more responsible use of these models and how to ensure that these models are safe in their outputs and so on. There's a lot of tooling that they're doing. For instance, the Llama Guard 2 is really interesting. You can take a look at that if you're doing some evaluation around safety or working with these models and you really care about safety, which you should, but you can find more information about that there. Okay, so that's it for the kind of announcement here, very high level. And what we can do now is we can jump into the blog post, which has more details. These are all the takeaways, pretty much what I posted on Twitter here. I can read here on my Twitter some of the takeaways and just kind of sort of summarize it for you. Now, something I didn't cover here when I was covering the instruct model, one interesting aspect of these models is, how strong are their pre-trained models as well? Because some of these instruct models, we might not want to use them. They might be too tuned to the point where we can not use them for our use cases. So we might be interested to use like the base models, right? The pre-trained models. And that's obviously what I said here. Great news for AI developers. We can see that this. Let me go back to the blog post here, and I'll show you here the results. You can see here that these models, which are also released, are the top performing models, broadly speaking, here on all the different benchmarks that were tested, right? So there's also an AGI eval here, Big Bench, the Arc Challenge, drop all of these common benchmarks, and you will see how strong this model actually is, this pre-trained model, and that's very good because that means you have these very capable open model that you can tune for your use cases, right? You don't really have to follow the instruction tune model. So that's really amazing to see. And it's incredible that you can get this amount of performance today with these pre-trained models. So I'm very curious of going into the details about what actually enabled these models to reach to this point. Now, something that's interesting, and I've seen it in the community, is sort of what this model entails and so on. So here are some technical details, or at least a summary of it. Obviously, a standard decoder only transformer was used. There's this is a typo here. So the vocabulary is 128 tokens, right? So more tokens. I think it was like 32K Llama 2, something like that, and now they have increased it. It's trained on sequences of 8K tokens. I know a lot of people will complain about it. However, I know the Llama 3 team is working on extending the context window length, because that unlocks different applications with these models, right? So it's very important that we have longer context window. We want to use these models for like RAG systems or doing like large scale analysis on bigger documents and so on. So we really need that kind of support as well. I'm pretty sure other folks might want to also extend some of these models, and that always happens with these releases. So we'll be curious to see what happens there, and I will probably be tweeting about that if I see anything interesting from the community. They also apply group core retention. This is not surprising. I think most of the like state of the art models, the open models that share details, obviously, are using something like this, which is like a really improved version of core retention. This is for efficiency and also for effectiveness of these systems to model sequences. There's also pre-training on over 15 trillion tokens. Not so surprising here. I don't think this is surprising, but it's a lot of tokens, obviously, and a lot of data that was used. But I can see that in terms of the data, they used mostly what publicly available sources, right? Obviously, this is an open model, and we would love more details about what exactly that data entails, but most of these releases don't really have that, right? So that's something to note. I don't really have the expectation that they will share a lot of that, but at least they're claiming that it's publicly available sources. Really interesting here. Something I've been noticing in terms of like trainings of these large language models is the combination of ideas, right? So this one actually for post training, right, includes a combination of the supervised fine tuning, rejection sampling, PPO. This is like the typical things that you see with these models today, and then DPO as well, which has been quite fascinating to see some research papers report really successful results with these techniques. And so I think what they do is, although not much is shared about how they do it, they do share that they have combined basically to do the instruction tune models or instruction fine tuning, that they have combined a combination of these things, right? So that's remarkable to see, and I think we will see this continues to be a trend where you are combining all these ideas and techniques. It's not that the field has saturated. I think it's just combining things to see what more efficiency or what more optimization we can get from these models. You can see here from this text, some of our biggest improvements in model quality came from carefully curating this data and performing multiple rounds of quality assurance on annotations provided by human annotators. So obviously, human annotators still very key to get performance from these models. And also the idea of having highly curated data, which is something that we cannot ignore. There is a lot of focus on not only collecting big or large data sets, right, but also ensuring that they are high quality and don't contain the information that you don't want. So there's a lot of like filtering techniques, data creation techniques that I see from all the research that I've been following recently. So that's great. There's not a lot of details, obviously, and I know that there's like a technical report that's coming soon. So when that happens, I might do a follow-up to go through all the technical details. But here it's more like high level, and just to give you some ideas on and thoughts basically on what has been announced and what we know from the release. Okay, there's a bunch of other things. What it took to build Llama 3, other like partnership stuff and so on. You can read that in the blog post on your own. And there's also something about deploying Llama 3, some Llama recipes, something to also check out as well. Right, you can see here they also mention group query attention, which has been added to Llama 3. So this is about production, right? Making these models available and make sure that we can put them in production for different applications. So those efficiencies or optimizations are really key. Okay, you can see it here. GQA contributed to maintaining the inference efficiency on par with Llama 2 7B. Exactly right. As we scale these models, we want to make sure that you can also make them efficient at inference time. It doesn't make sense we release a bigger model or a model of some size like this and it's unusable because the inference is pretty bad. Although there are some other companies that are focusing mostly on inference efficiency, and that's something I'm tracking as well, and I share a lot about that on my Twitter. Okay, so what's next? This is also very exciting. I think this release. I don't think it's premature. I would hate to say that it's premature. I love what Meta does. I know the community has been pressuring. There were some rumors that this was going to come out in June or July. But I think the results are great. It's great that the community has access to these models as well to start experimenting and kind of comparing with all the status quo models and so on. But I'm excited to see that there is like more efforts around Llama 3 and more future releases that are going to come as well. So there is a 400 billion parameter model in the works. You can see that it's still training. And you can see that the checkpoint as of April 15, right, 3 days ago, you can see the performance. And this is insane performance already for a 400 billion plus parameter model. You can see how ridiculous these numbers are. I mean, if you have tracked performance on MMLU and human eval on these different benchmarks, they're kind of really hard benchmarks, but it's really interesting to see this, right? There's also the question of like data contamination and so forth as well. But hopefully the team is actually focusing on that and ensuring that there's none of that during these kind of experiments. But this is amazing. I mean, I'm excited about these results for a 400 billion parameter model. The expectation is that as you scale, right, you're going to get better results. Those are kind of their sort of like scaling laws. And so there's a lot of interest in that, and I'm really excited for like the new developments. There's also something here about supporting multimodality. That's something that I actually expected Llama 3 to have natively support, right? So you can see that these GPT-4 has a vision, and other models, they also have vision capabilities. And also there's interested to have like multilingual capabilities. That's very interesting too, to support use cases in different languages. There are a lot of complaint about longer context window. I know a lot of people probably will be a bit disappointed that it's 8K, but I'm pretty sure that they're working on this, and we will have longer context window to be able to use these models for like knowledge intensive use cases or trying to develop like yeah, these RAG systems, and even these agentic workflows, right? So this is what everyone is building and everyone is doing today. So including myself, and I want to see that there's more support for longer context window. Um, okay. And yeah, we will see that there is a research paper that will be released eventually. I know the research papers on Llama, the Llama team, and Meta overall, they usually include a lot more details. So I'm anticipating that there will be more details about training data, more details about like some of the architectural decisions and so on. So there we will know more about some of the reasons why these models are performing really well on some of these benchmarks. All right, so that's roughly speaking the results. There is also something here about usually when you do evaluation, right? There's also human evaluation, and this has to do with like real world capabilities. I'm a huge advocate for this. When I talk about models and when there's always a release, something I always call out is like, okay, I don't really just want to see MMLU performance or human eval performance because cheating can be happening there as well. I'm not saying they are cheating, but I just say it can happen, and sometimes it happens unintentionally. I would love to see more from the community where they test things like creative writing, extraction, things that we really use these models for in the real world. And you can see that they also did a little bit of effort here on doing some human evaluation and how they compare with Cloud Sonnet, Visual Medium, and GPT 3.5 as well. So you can see the results here. And it seems that a tree instruct model 70 billion, it's seems to be more favorable or at least more preferred by humans from the win percentage here. So that's awesome to see. Again, all of these things, right? It's something that evaluation is something you do on your own, like when you're building use cases. So you take this with a grain of salt. You really need to do your own evaluation, but it's great that they did it and they can show here how these models are performing and how they compare. So that's something to look into as well. Okay, so one last thing I want to call out, actually two, is the model card. So before I wrap up here, there is a model card. You can go through all the details are here. The license as well. There's a community license, I believe. Llama tree is intended for commercial and research use in English. You can see it here. When you use these models, I always take a look at the license. I don't know if this is an improved version of the previous license. I still need to go into the details of the actual license, but you can read it yourself here. And that's something that the community also expected some changes on. So take a look at that and decide for yourself whether this makes sense to use for your use cases. Okay, it's a little bit more information about hardware and software. I might do a little bit more overview on this once the technical report comes out. I guess they will have more details on that there. CO2 emissions. Training data, I guess there's going to be more on that in the technical report, I assume. But you can see that the pre-training data cutoff was March 2023, right? So that's really important for the 7 billion model, and for the 70 billion, it was December 2023. So this is more about benchmarks. Again, that's already, we went through that. There's something on safety here and more details. So I always look at the and you can see all the contributors here. Really an amazing set of people working hard to release these models, right? So it's a huge list here. So thank you to all the team and Meta for really pushing themselves and pushing this model out there for our community to kind of leverage and start to use. So thank you to the team there. There was some conversation on Twitter about whether we're going to have a mixture of experts. Mixture of experts is what all these other companies are using on their latest models. So we have like, I believe Gemini, and we have like the what was it called, the other model, Mistral models as well, Mixtral models that they use mixture of experts, and a couple of other companies are using the mixture of experts and leveraging that, right? And I like really this quote from one of the contributors of this work, Llama Tree. So if you look, you can get more details from Aston Zhang here, and you can follow and you can read over some of the details. Some of these are already kind of summarized, but here is a little bit of a clue on why these models are so performant. And again, it has to do with better scaling laws and infrastructure, and so forth, right? Talking about how much GPUs and so forth. But I guess we will know a lot more about these models when the technical report does come out, and we will have a better idea and understanding of where these models, what's the secret sauce, where these models performing so well, and so on. So I hope we have more details very soon that we can share. So if you want to use this model, you can see from the announcement here, right? You can experience Llama 3 on Meta AI. So it seems that Meta AI is Meta's intelligent assistant. It looks a bit like ChatGPT, right? And you can have conversations, I guess. You can try it out. I believe, from my understanding, that this one is supported by Llama 3. So if you want to get a feel for how Llama 3, I believe, is the instruct model, how it performs on different tasks, you can go to meta.ai and try it out. So there's a couple of like templates here that you can use. So let's try some of these. Help me with an assignment. So here you have help me with an assignment. Start by asking me 3 questions about the assignment. Okay, you can see it's obviously this is conversational agent, right? It helps you to like solve task and generate whatever you want to generate. Um, so I will be testing this out more. I might do follow up. Just leave a comment if you want me to go through this. I mean, I do experiment a lot with these models, but if I start to do experiments here, it might take a long time and it will extend this video. I just wanted to focus on the overview of the announcement and give you my thoughts. But I think this could be a good follow-up video if you want me to test this, and we can have like even a live stream if that's necessary. But I can test some of the capabilities, right, like reasoning and so forth. So let me know. That's gonna be it. Do try it out. Leave some comments if you want in on this video about what more you want to see. I'm gonna do more of these type of videos, in the coming weeks as well. So I am posting more regularly on YouTube, as you can notice, and that's something that I kind of challenged myself this year to do and to keep up to date with all these kind of changes. Everything is going so fast, but I think once we do this in community and kind of communicate and share ideas and so forth, I think this is a good way to kind of keep up. So that'll be for today. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like there, and also it helps if you subscribe as well. That tells me if you're really interested in this content, and it tells me if you want to see more of this in the future. So have a good one. Bye.